Greetings and salutations, listener. It is May 12th, 2014, and this is the Two Nerds Podcast. I am Eric J. Chucci, here with the boy.
Hey.
And today we are going to be talking about the Elder Scrolls series. But before we do, I'd just like to get this out of the way and remind you to like, comment, subscribe, because it actually does help us out. I'd also like to give a shout out to our pal Super Blizzard, who let us use his Shining Wasato song, Let's Get Hardcore, for our show's theme. You can buy all his wonderful music at his Bandcamp page, and the link will be below in the description. He writes awesome stuff. So let's get down to brass tacks. Elder Scrolls. I've been a long-time fan. How about yourself?
Yeah, I jumped on it around Morrowind, so...
I played some Daggerfall back when I was a little younger, mostly. I think I rolled up a character and actually legitimately took a stab at it. Got to the second town and realized they all look the same and guards are everywhere and don't have a sense of humor. And then I just kept re-rolling different characters to see what kind of boobies they had.
Yeah, you were young at the time.
I was young at the time.
Let's see. My first character in Morrowind was, for anyone who knows me very well, predictably a mage. But I have always loved this series. Now, I want to get something right out front. And it's going to cause a lot of you, a lot of the few of you that listen, to...
One half of Ultimo Dragon's split personality will be upset.
To bawl, just uncontrollably. For myself and for my compatriot here, we both played Elder Scrolls almost exclusively as a console game. Which means we don't have the mods and we don't have the glorious PC controls. Yes, we know we're inferior. It's just how we're used to playing it.
Well, and you know, it's awesome. But the few times, because we do have Oblivion on PC.
Yeah, I've played it like twice.
And we briefly considered, the modding was so hard back then, and by the time we got it, the major website for it just didn't work anymore. Anyway. I think the modding would go too far. I think we would stop having fun with the Elder Scrolls games and start having fun with the mods. And not that that's a bad thing, but there's so much I love about the Elder Scrolls. The last thing I would want to do is become a mod snob, you know?
Oh yeah, the game's unplayable unless you get this mod and that mod.
Yeah, and they have perfectly legitimate reasons to feel that way, and I'm very afraid I would feel that way if I got to mod it so far. I'd load up the new game and be like, oh, these hairs are awful, why can't I change them yet? Get on it!
Yeah, because we wouldn't make mods.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that.
But yeah, no, same. I've seen the mods, and they're beautiful, and they're glorious, and I want them, but I don't think it'd be a good idea for me to have them, because no one man was meant to have all that power.
Especially with Skyrim, you know, how easy it is to mod, how they include that dev kit in there for you. I mean, I had a D&D computer game. I want to say it was Neverwinter Nights, the first one. Yeah, it was. And I barely played the main game, and I would just make my own little dungeons and NPCs and tweak them and use mods there. I couldn't tell you what happens after the first part. You run around in a little castle, and everybody says, Fortuna, Fordigimar, like a million times, and I don't know what happens after that.
FYI, that doesn't change. Whole game, Fortuna, Fordigimar. That
about sums up my Baldur's Gate experience, too. I ran through the first little dungeon, everybody said Fortuna, Fordigimar, and then I went about my business.
But, just now that we have that out of the way, I've always loved this series. For me, this series is probably about as good as a Western RPG gets. It has everything I want out of a Western RPG. I could do with a little bit more of an immersive story, but the very nature of the game kind of prevents it.
Well, I don't know that the nature of the game prevents an immersive story. I think taking cues from Dragon Age Origins, and not the entire game, of course, but cues from the way their story flows. And Baldur's Gate, obviously. I mean, you know, Dragon Age is a spiritual successor to it, after all. I think taking cues from that could really improve Skyrim's story. You know, and any Elder Scrolls game, after Skyrim came out, you know, you saw a lot of RPG devs, and when asked about what they were doing in the future, among their answers was always, we're looking at Skyrim rather extensively. And that's, you know, the proof is in the pudding with the new Dragon Age game coming out, Inquisition.
It's supposed to be very similar.
Yeah, it's very open world. It's, they're taking a lot of aspects about how you maneuver through the game and what kind of areas you explore. And the Radiant AI and quest systems.
Oh god, Radiant AI was just so good. I've also played Skyrim a relatively absurd amount.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, this is in, started 2014. I started a new Skyrim game yesterday.
And this is kind of what spurred this conversation on. Originally, we were going to talk about League of Legends today. But there's not been a lot going on in the League of Legends front that we've been up with. Obviously, we're going through the All-Star games. I haven't been keeping up with them. We were really hoping Braum was going to be released by now so that we could talk about him, but that's not the case yet, and neither of us have PvE access. So, we both started new Skyrim characters very recently. The Elder Scrolls Online RPG finally actually came out not long ago.
Yeah, played it in beta, but that's a whole different topic. We'll get into that.
Well, I mean, the topic for today, but right now let's just get a little bit of fanboyism out of the way. I have also rolled up a new character, and it's brought a lot of the life back. I was avoiding playing Skyrim for a long time because I really wanted to finish the DLC for Fallout New Vegas. I was watching some videos online, and I was watching Boy play around, and it just can't stay away for that long, man. It's just that much fun. It's that immersive. And I agree with the Boy. It's probably the best you're going to get out of a Western RPG. I like a deeper story, like Mass Effect or Dragon Age can offer you, because I'm a big JRPG guy. I always have been. It's really what got me into video gaming. I mean, I liked Mario a lot when I was a kid, but I never really, got crazy into it until I played the first Final Fantasy. And just the scope of what you could customize and what you could create, and the fact that you could go anywhere and do anything within the limitations of the system. I mean, but, compared to Mario, where, motherfucker, you're going forward and that's it. It was mind-blowing to me, and everybody could equip all this different gear. I mean, I hadn't even played D&D by this point, This was my introduction to role-playing, and it blew me away.
And just to get some more fanboying out of the way, I know that there's a big cult of people who think Morrowind is still the best Elder Scrolls game. I just have I have to disagree. Skyrim wins, and not because it's the newest one, but because it's the best one.
Well, and I think it wins because it's the newest one. I love Morrowind, but the system isn't as refined. Oblivion was kind of a stutter step, but Skyrim does a really good job with NPCs. The voice acting is delightful. And, you do hear a lot of lines over and over again. Anything's for sale! Over and over again. But, I'm sworn to carry your burdens.
You only hear that over and over again if you don't ditch Lydia like a bad habit.
Yeah, and instead you go with someone cool like Jazargo, who's down for whatever. But that's a limitation of of the disc, of the time. I mean, they could make an amazing game if they had all the time in the world, a perfect game even. But it's all tighter. The reason I wanted to finish Fallout New Vegas and all its DLC before I went back to Skyrim is basically because, the run button of all things is such a vast improvement to the game. Going anywhere in Fallout, butt naked, with the control stick pushed to maximum, feels like I'm crawling there, using only my torso as locomotion.
Just in contrast to the ability to run for brief spurts.
Yeah, I mean...
Also, I think the walk speed in Skyrim is a little faster.
Maybe. Well, isn't it a bigger map? There's more ground to cover.
Yeah.
New Vegas feels so small. Like, when I was playing it, after having played Skyrim, I was wandering around the wastes, and I'm like, really? That's all the farther away that is? Oh, well, I move at the speed of snot, so that...
Balances.
Yeah. And I mean, that's not even talking about the horses. There are no horses in New Vegas.
Horses.
Oh my god.
Add to the fact that, honestly, I love Fallout. That That's my old school nerd cred. Fallout 1 and 2. My brother-in-law introduced me to them when I was a little kid, and I could not stop playing them. I love the Fallout universe. I swear to you, I find the setting for Skyrim so much more interesting than the New Vegas Wasteland, or than the Capital Wasteland, or...
Well, and that's honestly where I think Skyrim still fails to live up to Morrowind. And we touched the tip of the iceberg with this when we were speaking privately last night, but I don't really ever care to go back to Cyrodiil. I mean, it would be nice, but if they said, okay, we're doing Elder Scrolls, what are we up to, 6 now?
Yeah.
They said we're doing Elder Scrolls 6 and we're going back to Cyrodiil, I'd be like, really? You know, if they said we're doing Elder Scrolls 6 or 7 or 8 and we're going back to Skyrim, really? There's so much of this world to explore. You know, I want to see Elsewhere. I want to see Somerset Isle, you know. But if they came to me and said we're doing Elder Scrolls 6 and we're going back to Morrowind, we're going to Vardenfell,
What's
okay, yeah, sold. I mean, it's just it's so different without being alien, you know? It's so unique and cultural without seeming ridiculous.
Small aside, apparently I'm very noob to podcasts because he was saying that, and I nodded like yes, assuming you guys would be able to understand that I agreed with him.
The boy is in accord. We'll put subtitles up every time he nods.
There you go. Yeah, all right.
No, he won't.
Yeah. That doesn't seem like a thing that will
The
happen.
beauty of the podcast is that I can cut out the few times we cough and fart and just send her up to for you to listen to. Slap it into a pre-made, pre-edited distance of theme and be like, there, done, good.
See, I loved Morrowind. I did. I loved how different it was. I liked Dwemer Ruins a lot better in
I'll give you
Skyrim.
that, yeah, because they're just tedious in Morrowind. Everything looks the same. I mean,
and they're so beautiful in Skyrim.
Oh yeah. Well, and I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the art itself maturing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the same way, to bring up Dragon Age again, the same way at Dragon Age Origins, everything looked flat and brown and stupid. Everything in Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition looks beautiful. You know, they make these dumb, boring caves and these stupid, tedious, deep roads look lush and colorful, because it's a fantasy world. You should be able to go, you know what, this place looks like shit. Can we just put a giant blue fucking glowing crystal in the middle of the room just to break up all the brown? And Skyrim does that, and the Dwemer Ruins do that in Skyrim, and I do agree, they're a lot better.
But, I mean, in general, I really think Morrowind has a much more interesting landscape than Skyrim or Cyrodiil in Oblivion, but I just don't... I find it much harder to care, and that's not just now going back. No, I found it much harder to care back then, too, because the game was open-ended, but there's a line between open-ended gameplay and a GTA-level sandbox game that leaves you bored 2 hours in.
And I agree. I think voice acting, I think the modern comforts that we've come to be used to in gaming would have helped a lot with that. Because you really aren't given much of a direction. I believe it's suggested to you in the beginning of Morrowind, hey, you should probably go see... I don't remember his name, in Balmora, and he'll give you some quests, maybe.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of direction, and it's really hard to find anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, in the wastes.
Yeah, in the waste, it's hard to find anything, and I'm not talking about fast travel. That's not my complaint. I've played entire characters in Skyrim where I didn't fast travel. Mm-hmm. It's not that. It's that finding things in the video game, unless they are secret things, should not be a challenging affair. If there are secret things, it should be a challenging affair, but I shouldn't have to search to find a major city.
Yeah, and I think Skyrim does a great job with that in a number of ways. I mean, first of all, fast travel is a vast improvement on your late game. I think it's really important to take time and explore when you first start playing the game, or maybe when you first start playing a new character, So it makes sense that you can't fast travel everywhere. I mean, these artists took all this time to make this world so beautiful, and you're just
sit back and enjoy it.
Sit back and enjoy it. We both played characters. Not the last round of characters, but the one before that, who just sort of strolled through town. You know, these were rules we enforced on ourselves. I had a two-handed weapons user. I hadn't used one of those yet. An Argonian, super buff, named Blood in the Water. And he would put on a different set of clothes when he was in town. I would, slow my roll. I would only tilt the thumbstick forward, and he would just mosey. I had to mosey everywhere in town. Take in the sights, look around at people, listen to NPC dialogue.
No fast travel unless you're on a horse.
Yeah, I mean,
so no fast travel at all until you get rich enough to buy a horse. Mine was an Altmer barbarian. That's a thing that I should probably mention if we're going to talk about specific characters. I have this weird pattern of I don't ever seem to play the appropriate race for...
Yeah.
I played a Nord mage, an Altmer barbarian. The Khajiit rogue was pretty bog standard.
That's pretty standard. What are you doing now? Redguard Paladin?
Redguard Paladin, yeah.
That's not too far out.
No, I thought about doing an Argonian,
yeah.
But they don't Paladin to me. It didn't feel right.
I have a hard time playing anything but Argonians and Khajiit, which is weird because I started off on Dark Elves so hard. Daggerfall, my actual character, was a Dark Elf. In Morrowind, my character was a Dark Elf. I looked at the Argonians and the Khajiit, and I think I played a Nord for a split second, but my character was a Dark Elf.
You were a Dunmer.
Yeah. And then Oblivion. Oblivion's where things kind of changed. I had a Dark Elf, and there was another character I played. I don't remember exactly what it was. But then I decided on Khajiit, and I was going to do heavy armor, two-handed weapons, and go fuck shit up. And he became one of my favorite in-game role-playing characters, I think, that I've ever done.
But myself, Morrowind was very bog standard for me. I played an Altmer mage. Then I think I played a Dunmer mage. I like mages. But then, on Oblivion, I also didn't play anything, but I played mages a lot. They were both Altmer, actually. My two major characters in Oblivion were both Altmer mages. Very different.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. In Oblivion, not so much in Skyrim, they've made it much easier, but in Oblivion I was sort of, god-awful at making things with a face.
Yes. Well, you had that problem for a while in the WWE games as well.
Yeah, I making a face is something about, I guess, I have some sort of psychological condition where I don't really understand what faces are supposed to do.
And just a vague jumble of shapes that you see on the horizon attached to a person.
Yeah. So when I make a face, it looks fine to me until someone else gets a look at it and I can see it, sort of through their eyes, and it's a horrible freak of nature. Like, I made this character, played him for like 10 hours. I played mostly in first person. Then I was like, hey, White, look at this. Because we were roommates even back then, basically. And I pulled the camera out and turned it around, and he was like, go! It was this horrible, freakish Altmer who looked terrifying.
He was the reason there weren't children in that game.
Yeah,
We decided pretty quickly that he was some sort of horrible child molester. Was that the same character who ended up wearing glass armor?
Yeah.
That was the one that I called the Big Bad Beetleborg.
Yes, because it was Big Bad Beetleborg armor is what it was.
Glass armor in Oblivion looked ridiculous.
It really did. It was awful looking. It was Beetleborg armor. But then I decided that I was gonna make another Altmer mage. I wanted to make a good one this time.
So he handed the controller to me.
Yeah, and he made Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
I played The Rock, an Altmer mage. I took a bunch of one-handed stuff. I got really good at unarmed fighting and hand-to-hand combat, so that I could, if I was running out of magic, I could just bust out one of The Rock's lines and throw down with a motherfucker.
You kept using just like shock spells exclusively.
Yeah, I used exclusively shock magic because I was an electrifying.
Yeah, and you could name the spells in Oblivion still, and you would name them shit like the most electrifying spell and
in all of Cyrodiil. The People's Charm Spell.
Yeah. Good times, good times.
But... And then... Skyrim was first a mage. This time it was a Nord, though, because Skyrim was such a very deep and immersive game. It was a very Nord-centric story. So the first character I wanted to play was a Nord, and the first character I wanted to play was a mage, because Wizard Master Race.
Well, I think that might be why.
So fucking much. I don't notice in regular conversation, but now knowing this is
Oh
recorded,
man,
they're gonna get tired of hearing that.
Literally.
Yes.
But I think that's actually part of the reason I don't play a Dark Elf in Skyrim. That I can't really. I have a couple of Dark Elf characters. One I started in Solstheim. That's not going well. Don't try that at home.
Here's an expansion for high-level characters. I'll just stuff my level 1 noob here. That should end well.
You know what? It's been going a lot better than I thought it was going to. You can kind of grind up on the band of pirates that's off to the south, and the one group of bandits that's leading up to those caves. And then if you go do a bunch of tasks for that dude who lives in the mushroom, you can get a lot of levels like that. Wandering around the ash wastes, killing ash hoppers, and whatever the hell else you might come across. That's pretty good too. I hit a stopping point. I got myself good and stuck though, so that character's pretty much, he's a save file for future generations, for posterity to look at and go, don't fucking do this. This was a bad idea conceived of by a bad, bad man. But Morrowind was so immersive, and it was so cultural, same way Skyrim is. Cyrodiil, you got to Oblivion, and it was like, it didn't even really mean anything to be an Imperial. The one game where it didn't.
Yeah, you weren't anything special.
No, Cyrodiil's such a melting pot.
Nobody really was anything special, and I think that was part of... I don't think it was unintentional, because you're right, Cyrodiil's the melting pot. Mm-hmm. It's the center. It is the Empire. It was, and that was the culture that you were inundated with, the Empire. Mm-hmm. But even then, I felt more in touch with the Empire as a culture, as a thing, in Skyrim.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and here's the thing, though. That game was not called Cyrodiil.
No, it was about the Oblivion Crisis. It was Oblivion.
So, it didn't matter where it took place, essentially.
Yeah, you're right, but it seems like doing a disservice to a really interesting part of Tamriel, and I hope they don't do the same thing if they ever decide to go to, one of the other places, because I don't want a weird, watered-down version of Elsewhere that focuses on something that's happening there. If I'm going to get the Elder Scrolls elsewhere, I want the Elder Scrolls elsewhere.
Right. I agree entirely. There's just so much culture there and if you read the lore, and I do, which is part of the reason I find myself so enamored with the Khajiit and the Argonians. I like the other races; they're pretty neat, but man, they're just so interesting. Now Skyrim is very cultural too. To bridge back into our previous point before going too far down the rabbit hole, but man, human characters sure do look boring.
I kind of disagree, but at the same time... See, I know what you're talking about. I kind of disagree, but I think it's more that... It's not that the human characters look boring. You're going the wrong way. It's that the Khajiit and Argonian characters look really interesting.
I think that's right, because there's... hairstyles, barring dreadlocks, and beards, are uniform across all races. Most of the face paint, except for 2 or 3 designs at the end, are uniform across all races. The fun stuff you used to be able to do with the elves is kind of gone. They're all really gaunt and sickly, and they all have the same hairstyles as the humans. Used to be the fun part of the elves was you got crazy Dairy Queen hair for the Bosmer, and dark elves had these interesting twisted, hairstyles and stuff like that. And the Altmer were high society to a point of high fashion that, Lady Gaga's looking at it and going, that's that's too much.
Seems like a bit much.
It's excessive.
Maybe dial it back.
And it's just absent in Skyrim. I mean, even the elves are really bland. You know, the Khajiit and the Argonians are where things
get interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because they've got the feathers, and they've got the different cat ears, and
they've got the different, like, hairstyles. They have a wildly different set of hairstyles than the other races. Khajiit do.
And most importantly, that's pretty much all you see in Skyrim are people. Nords, Imperials, and then to a lesser extent, Bretons and Redguards.
Yeah, there's a kind of aside from, and I guess because Skyrim is kind of a racist culture against these races, at least. The only time you really see a lot of I can only think of the times, like, the only Khajiits in that game besides you are the caravan Khajiits. Am I wrong?
There are a couple of others, and you'll run into the occasional Khajiit or Argonian who's like a bandit, just randomly generated.
Very rare.
Oh yeah, it's very rare. Like, I saw one the other day when I was playing, and I couldn't help but think, "Hello, my brother," before I smashed his face in. But yeah, the caravans, Jizargo. I think there's one
Jizargo.
Jizargo's amazing. There's one other Khajiit follower. I think a couple of Khajiit merchants, but I mean they're in the minority, the vast minority, which makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, Skyrim's far away.
Skyrim is super far north. The Empire's full of shit right now.
It's cold.
It's cold. Yeah.
And neither Khajiits nor Argonians are from anything even remotely resembling a cold place.
And they are pretty racist against those two races. And it makes sense that you see less Redguards and Bretons. What is a Redguard doing all the way up there? That's not just north. That's north and east. Why? You know, the Bretons. I mean, I'm surprised there were as many Bretons as there were in Cyrodiil.
I don't know, man. High Rock is not super far away from Skyrim.
Well, but you gotta figure there's huge-ass mountains right there full of orcs.
You do see lots of orcs.
There's a fair amount of orcs, yeah. And that's nice. I mean, I think it's clear the devs really put a lot of thought into
the balance of different races.
Which makes sense, because I believe this started out as like someone's custom homebrew D&D setting.
Yeah.
Which is great. I mean, I love seeing ideas like this take off and become, you know, fucking Skyrim. I mean, when's the last time you were like, you know, I'm going to change this character and he's going to be this kind of mage instead of that kind of mage. Is that cool? Yeah, we'll just refluff it, no problem. And then that's a multi-million-dollar video game franchise.
Oh, that's never happened to me. You would know if it had.
I hope so. But I mean, that, you know, thinking about, like, you know, that it's possible. Not even that it's a good dream, but that it's possible to sit in your basement one day and be like, man, I sure do love this custom NPC race. You know, and dream that it might happen. And understand that it's a reality that could occur. That you may one day, through the right amount of wit, guile, luck, money, and expertise, find yourself in such a position. I mean, you know, that's pretty awe-inspiring. But I do like the attention to detail. I think it's really super important. And as I was saying, you know, Skyrim is super cultural, but because you always see humans, because you always see them with the same hairstyles, the same face paints, the same, you know, clothes, you're just like, why would I want to be this? Or at least I am personally. I mean, I'm enough of a xenophile that it's hard for me to pick humans in any instance where I could pick another race anyway. But I have no problem making Commander Shepard look interesting. I have no problem making Hawk look interesting. Now, am I going to pick a human in the next Dragon Age? Fuck no.
Yeah, no, you're playing a Qunari. We both know that.
I'm going to play Qunari first, and then a dwarf. Unless something happens in character creation and the dwarf, like, speaks to me. Then I'll play the dwarf first.
I'll probably play a Qunari at some point. Not a Qunari mage. I don't know why you wish to torture yourself to that extent.
I think it'll be really interesting story-wise.
But, I like the Elder Scrolls as a setting, and I like how they're unafraid to change that setting. They're not beholden to, like, the Dwemer designs from Morrowind. They're not beholden to the way the Nords acted in Oblivion, or the designs from Bruma, which were Nord-inspired, to make Skyrim. They feel that they are free to change things for the better when necessary. I actually really like that.
I agree.
Now, I don't always think the changes are for the better. Like, from what I understand back before I played in, Arena #1, Cyrodiil was a jungle, and that would have been much cooler than standard fantasy deciduous forest, but jungle would have been kind of hard to pull off. So I'm not surprised they went that way.
Well, and it made more sense for the Empire to exist in such a place. I mean...
Jungles are notoriously hard to cut through and to make inroads.
And civilize. I mean, I'm not saying an empire couldn't exist there, but like the Mayans, it would be really insular.
It would probably end up being a different thing.
Yeah, it'd be an empire unto itself.
It wouldn't be the Roman Empire and all that name.
Right. And I think that's an important part of the Empire in the Elder Scrolls series, is that they are that effigy of the Roman Empire, for good and for ill.
They are that all-reaching, all-consuming, monolithic culture that seeks to integrate and at the same time stamp out everything they come in contact with. That is Rome, and that is the Septim Empire. And I really like that, because it gives you kind of a waystone into the setting, because some of the cultures there are pretty similar to cultures in real life and whatnot. Skyrim's culture, Nord culture, is pretty similar to Scandinavian culture. There's differences, obviously, but it's pretty similar. But some of them aren't. Like, Morrowind's culture is pretty far afield from a lot of cultures and maybe I'm just culturally blind, maybe it's just my first world privilege showing itself, and there's a bunch of cultures out there in places I've never been or heard of that are just like that.
If there's a place that's as cool as Morrowind, I don't think that's first world privilege. I think that we are being denied something awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to go there, please. Can I go to the floating city?
I want a pet Scrib.
But it's just... Morrowind is pretty far afield. Black Marsh is pretty far afield. Even Elsewhere, though it has some...
Elsewhere has a lot of Middle Eastern flavor, but the exotic Middle East from the 60s, from 60s American cinema, that was all, multicolored scarves and spices and sand.
Yeah, the not-so-realistic interpretation of the Middle East it's very, very colorful, very high fantasy version of it. But some of those cultures are pretty far afield, like of anything in real life. So the Empire serves as like your comfortable sweater. It lets you have something that that you feel like you can relate to, that you understand, that allows you to then explore the rest of the setting in contrast to this thing.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I think all these races are important. I just don't necessarily want to roll one. I played an Imperial. I played an Imperial to like level 30, I think.
You played Chuck Norris.
No. Oh, I did. And he didn't quite get to... I think he was level 20. That was in Oblivion. Unarmed combat. Wore like heavy armor everywhere but my torso because I had to always be manly. And, yeah, I made a perfect Chuck Norris face. But then he fell through the world when our game broke. And I deleted his file as sacrifice to see if that would help things. It didn't. No, I played me.
You did.
We ran an experience. Our last characters, we played ourselves, as imagined in Skyrim.
Yeah, and we took the role playing a step further. No, same rules as before with like the two characters we had done before. No fast traveling unless you're on a horse. No this, no that. And then we took it a step further. We had to eat every day. Mm-hmm. We had to drink something every day. We had to basically play by the Fallout New Vegas survival rules.
Yeah.
Since we didn't have a meter, we set it as a day limit thing.
We had to sleep every night.
We had to sleep every night for a certain amount of hours. Otherwise, we weren't as good the next day and couldn't do certain things. We made a bunch of rules for ourselves to limit. Because by this point, look, Skyrim isn't a hard game, you guys. By this point, we were both real good at it. Yeah. So... limiting ourselves provided some extra challenge and some extra opportunities to roleplay.
I found of myself that when in a situation, a civilization like
exactly like Skyrim,
that I go corrupt pretty fast, fast and hard.
Same, actually.
We were both, actually you had completed it, but we were both pretty well on our paths to becoming, like, vampire gods. And I had joined a cannibal cult.
And these two decisions were entirely separate.
Yeah.
By the way. We both independently went, vampirism? Sounds like a great idea.
Well, actually, I think I contracted it on accident. I joined the cannibal cult on purpose. I forget exactly how that storyline gets started. I was in Markarth. I keep trying to set up a character there. But that town is so glitchy.
Glitchy hell, that town is Satan. I hate Markarth. Never go to Markarth. Never go to You know how you don't go to certain parts of certain cities? Markarth is that. 100%. Don't go to Markarth. You'll get killed or robbed or assaulted. It is the awful backwater of Skyrim. I hate that city.
I think there's a couple of interesting adventure hooks there. Chiefly among them, the quest for Nemira. And I just sort of stumbled into it. I had to deliver something to the king, or whatever they call him, the Jarl.
Jarl.
I had to deliver something to the Jarl there, and on my way I talked to some priest who was trying to investigate something in the crypts, and I get down there, and this lady's like, hey, how's it going? You want to be a cannibal? And I'm like, okay. She's like, sweet, so just find a dude and bring him to cannibal dinner. Alright. We'll let you join our super secret club. I was like, this is great. I no longer have to lug around, 5 pounds of meat. I just kill a guy and I eat him. But I was fighting vampires at some point. I contracted Sanguinaris Vampiris, and I actually missed the little memo until I had my first, fever dream. And I really tried to do this in character, so, instead of going, my character wasn't a mage of any stride. I mean, I believe I used some magic. I don't even remember what I did. Oh, I got buff!
Yeah, you got super buff and were a barbarian.
Yeah! That was the other weird thing. I was like, I'm going to go to the Bard's College, and I did. I completed those quests. But that was my plan, because, I'm a writer, I make videos, I'm a creative mind, so I was like, okay, I'll probably end up being a bard. Well, I needed money, okay? So, first thing I did was I got to Riverwood, and I worked the blacksmith, I worked the lumber mill, and I'm like, well, logically speaking, this would give me mega arms. And I had mega arms anyway, because I wanted to make myself fat, like in real life. The only way to do that is to make yourself beefy. But, it made sense I had mega arms at that point, because I'd been smithing up daggers for who knows how long.
And chopping wood for a living for weeks. And
I went with a two-handed axe as my weapon, because as a person I like to be able to kill you from over here, but I also like the visceral sensation of a stabbing or a beheading, as opposed to crossbowing, which was my secondary weapon once I got into the vampire expansion.
And you basically ended up being, apparently, given access to magic, a relatively, Middle Ages setting, he becomes a crazy cannibal barbarian.
Yeah.
I become the kind of wizard who locks himself in a tower and cackles while shooting lightning down on the populace.
Yeah. We had this joke thing where, our characters would write pen pal information back and forth to each other. It was like, hey, what did you do today? Oh, I drained some innocents of their lifeblood, and I shocked some people from atop my high tower. Oh, that's pretty cool. I ate a guy. I'm part of this cool-ass cannibal cult. You should join.
And then I did.
Yeah, we got real corrupt real fast. I was doing the vampire, the Dawnguard quest. And, the
guy offered me power, and...
Yeah, he's like, do you want to be a super vampire? And I'm like,
sign up.
Sounds pretty good. I don't really like vampire form.
Oh, I love it.
I don't like either of the alternate forms. I like some of what they can do.
Well, here the funny thing is, with the boy, the version of me I played in Skyrim, he actually wasn't evil. He was just a mage. There is a line. And then he became a vampire and started eating people. And I would just, turn into vampire form and go marauding about the countryside for entire nights, eating whoever I came across, tossing giants.
That never really happened to me. I was evil in that I ate dudes, and
Which is evil. Look, we're not.
Yeah, I understand on the morality scale that's pretty far in the black, but it wasn't like I'm evil. I still did good deeds. If someone needed help, I was like, yeah, sure, beggar, here's some money, man. I hope things get better for you. If they don't, I'm going to eat your corpse. But that's not personal, okay?
I'm just hungry.
I'm a hungry dude.
For myself, the boy was actually very helpful. He liked using magic to help people. He liked getting magic's good name out into the world because he recognized that it had a bad reputation. He didn't think that was deserved and all that. Then he became a cackling, evil supervillain. Look, vampirism is a hell of a drug, okay?
And I think that's the beautiful thing about Skyrim, and I think that's why it's so great. It does so much stuff right, is because you can always experience something new every time you play it. Up to a certain extent, of course. I'm sure. There's a point you can get to where you've done everything. But the way Boy and I play, we don't
have a character who's done everything. All of the things. Does all of the guilds. Does all of the quests. It's not... I do, but mostly because I thought it would be funny to do the thing you can do online. The steps they have to completely break a character and make him basically invincible. After I played Skyrim for a while, I wanted to see if I could do that one, and then once I did, I just was going to have that character do everything, just to sort of wrap up the game, because I'd been out for like 3 years at that point, and lo and behold, I played that for a while, then got bored of it, and went back to playing a level 1 nobody, for some reason.
Well, and okay, we both started playing level 1 nobodies. I think I'm level 12, you're what, level 10?
12.
You're also level 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, you played some more after I went to bed last night. And I have seen and done 2 things I've never done before already. You saw, through me, but you saw something you had never seen before. And you're experiencing an entire skill tree you've never touched.
Because I've never touched block. I played a 2-handed fighter, I played a rogue who used 2 daggers, I played a wizard, and then I played an archer. That was the character I broke. And I've never used the block tree. I've never experienced it. Oh my god, it is so fun.
My first character. Alright, full disclosure, when I set out in Skyrim, I made my first character, Argonian, Jewel Eyes. I wrote down some of his adventures on a message board I run. Interesting stuff. But my first goal, the first thing I did was see if I could equip 2 shields. Dual-wield shields! I couldn't, so I went with, I believe, a mace and a shield. And spells. And that shield is so fun. Blocking is so much fun in that game.
I need a bigger shield because I have that trait that lets you deflect arrows,
Yeah.
but my hide shield, which is what I have right now, is so small.
Get an Imperial shield, man. They're big triangles.
Yeah, and they're light armor still.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but still.
They are. There's one. I was looking into it because I'm
I'm
playing a light armor paladin, which is harder than a heavy armor paladin. Because heavy armor paladins can be basically unmurderable.
Yeah.
Light armor paladins can't as much, so I need to know how I can get the most anti-murder for my buck.
Yeah. But the painted cow, I saw that giant leading a painted cow. I'd never seen a painted cow before in Skyrim.
He still hasn't seen the that random encounter where you meet a guy taking a painted cow to a giant. I told him about it, but he has not seen it. Since 2011, he's been playing this game. And this is maybe just I don't explore enough, or maybe I walked past it like a million times and never noticed. I hadn't seen the giant enemy crab that's in Skyrim until like 2 days ago.
I was playing, and a lot of characters I make have this insatiable urge to murder mud crabs. Not because I hate them. I love them. I think they're the cutest little... Like, this incarnation of mud crabs is my favorite by far. They just sink into the ground and they're like, I'm gonna get this guy. He's gonna come by, he's gonna think I'm a rock, and then pinch! I like to take their meats and their claws and I put them in my house. But I was killing a bunch of them and I looked over and I realized the giant enemy crab was there. I'd actually seen it before on a character who was murdering mud crabs. And Boy's like, what is that?
I'm over here on the computer and then I go, what? Crab battle?
The history. I knew about it. I knew there was a little quest for it. The sleeping sap.
The sleeping tree is what it's called.
Yeah.
Because it's not 100% confirmed that it's a history, but it's a history.
I knew about the quest. I'd heard the boy doing the quest before, but I happened to be just wandering through the field, and I come across a giant glowing tree and went, the hell is this? There was a cool-ass monument that was like some guy's tomb.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd never seen that before.
Year and Year's Monument or something?
Mm-hmm.
Big giant tower with one of them flags flapping off.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much stuff you can see and do in Skyrim. There was some quest I did that I'd never done before. I mean, it just never happened before, and it was cool. Oh yeah, the Companions quest I did, that random one that Vilkas gave me.
Oh.
He was like, go beat up this lady, it will be good times. You got it!
He's playing a Khajiit, so they win all the fist fights.
Yeah. But, and I think that's a beautiful part of Skyrim. We've been prattling on for a while, and I did want to talk about Elder Scrolls Online a little bit before we sign off for today.
I really, really don't, because it's depressing.
Well, and I think it bears mentioning. I think it's a good topic of conversation, and, those listeners that we have that are inclined to leave comments can talk about it in the comments section. People love doing that. So, I played the beta a little bit. I was lucky enough to get an invite.
So was I, but...
And I had an amazing time making a character.
Yeah, that character creation system is just the best.
One of the best. I really like
For an
Wild
MMO?
Stars. I really like Wild Stars.
Fair. I haven't played that one.
I was kind of disappointed that, again, the hair was pretty uniform across all races. Like, I think even including Khajiit. But there were so many other little customizable bits. You could make a character who was actually fat. I like that. Usually when you make a fat character, they're either like in Skyrim, where they also have to be beefy, or they're not actually fat, or...
They've just got a weird paunch.
Or they become a pear. The old WWF attitude. If you made a character so fat, they became a pear. That was like, it went from like husky to pear. But I digress. I had a great time making a character. And then the game just continued to disappoint me from there. I mean, it's not as visually appealing as Skyrim. It's not gonna be. I knew that going in.
It's an MMO. That's not what you're there for.
The character models are beautiful, and I think that's a really important part, so I'm glad they did that. But it really...
It's so MMO.
More than anything.
And, look, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. If that's what you went to the Elder Scrolls Online for, I'm sure you're very happy. When I heard about the Elder Scrolls Online, what my brain conjured up was Skyrim with multiplayer. Now, I know it's not going to be that, because that doesn't work, but I was kind of hoping they'd get a little closer than they did.
Well, it could work. There's no reason it couldn't work. You'd have to have the network set up for it. But there is absolutely no reason it couldn't work. It's not like they can't render the polys or something.
For an MMO game, it is...
Oh, for an MMO, yeah. I know, I agree entirely. And I think inherently the problem I had with Elder Scrolls Online was twofold. One was the rest of the people in the game. 8 times out of 10, when I play an MMO, I like to roleplay. I like to be my character. When I play Warcraft, I just go to roleplay servers. It's better.
It's just more fun.
Because you can still quest, and nobody bothers you. You can still do Dungeon Finder. They've got that new Raid Finder. I haven't played it. It's been out for like a year.
Well, we stopped playing WoW. So.
Yeah, we didn't have the time. But, you can still do all the things you do in World of Warcraft that are competitive and all that shit. But you can also stroll around town. I know every time I talk about Warcraft, I bring it up. The first time I went to a roleplay server, this is Worm Rest Accord, I was playing Alliance because I'd never really played Alliance before. I'd rolled a couple characters, but they never went past like level 10. Rolled up a Draenei Shaman, and I strolled into the capital city. I'm looking around on Slash Walk, looking at all the people just talking to each other, not bouncing around and, free gold from China, just having actual conversations, listening in on what they were talking about. I get to the chapel district, and bam, some guild has put on this huge fireworks display. And just for no reason other than to make people happy. And I'm like, oh my god, what have I been missing this whole time? This is like a completely different game.
Yeah, he pulled me into Worm Rest Accord because we were playing on a different server at that point. Started a new Alliance tune because to play with him on that roleplay server because he talked about how cool it was, and it was like night and day. There was so much more fun to hang out in town while you're waiting for like Dungeon Finder to find you something, because it was just more entertaining. And I even had a weird separate experience where there was a guy who wasn't role playing. He was running around, bouncing, sticking his head into conversations, in-character conversations that we're having, and yelling about them. Nobody paid attention to him at all. They just did not feed the troll.
Yeah.
That, more than anything, speaks to a level of dedication and discipline to keeping that roleplay server what it was supposed to be, that it baffled me. And that made a decision. Roleplay servers from there on out.
And it was later with those same characters that we met that nice couple of gay Draenei in that inn. And we sat to them.
We sat and I had some beers and
yeah, it was nice.
But honestly, that's one of the reasons I love the Elder Scrolls and why I wanted Skyrim with multiplayer, because I'm the same way he is. I role play my characters when I'm in Skyrim. I will do things that are just blatantly not in the best interests of that character's financial or otherwise well-being, simply because it's what the character would do. I roleplay.
Well, and on the light end of it, because, there are characters I roleplay with, like Blood in the Water, like myself. And then there are characters that I'm just sort of immersed in. Mm-hmm. Like my current character. He's not really a roleplay character. Sometimes I walk around town without my helmet on.
Same. My current character's mostly just a new character. I want to try out a new playstyle.
But, I still like to, every now and then, when some NPC says something to me, I will respond in Khajiit voice, in context of the situation.
Which may make us sound like crazy people.
Well, I mean, we're talking to the internet, man.
We're already crazy.
We're all friends here.
No, that's not true.
Well, no, there's those guys that we're going to get some people who go into the comment section and they're like, oh man, I got a real zinger. And they're going to type faggot, and it's going to have an @ symbol for the A, and like 4 exclamation points and 1 or 2 numerical digits.
Probably 3s.
Yeah. They're going to be like, yeah, I really burned those guys. They're going to think about their lives and how faggoty they are. And then he's going to load up Oblivion, and he's going to be like, I'm going to play my old character and respond to things as a wood elf. We are in fine company here, sir.
Fair enough.
But it's just like an every now and then thing. It's no different than talking to your cats or, talking for a baby or whatever. It's just that little bit of extra immersion. And Elder Scrolls Online lacked that in 2 ways. One, visually, it didn't draw me in. The way they had to reduce the graphics. Made me go,
this is flat.
Because there's not a lot of clutter, first of all. There can be, but there's not. The clutter that is there, most of it, isn't lootable. Look, I don't want to take all the cheese, but I like that I could. And I understand why it's not lootable, because someone's going to take that cheese.
It's already going to be gone.
And the plate and the fork, and they're going to try to drag the table out.
Eventually, the entire room's just going to be... All rooms are going to be empty warehouses with forlorn NPCs standing in them.
I had a cheese once. Oh, it's respawning, and it's gone. Lines of people gathered. Cheese drops in 4 minutes. But, there's that, and that's the community. It's hard to feel immersed in a battle when there's 40 other guys in the same battle who look the same as you, trying to fight the same guy. World of Warcraft and other games like it work with that.
They make the enemies who 40 people can fight at the same time epic in scope. They make them huge and gigantic, and they make their powers amazing looking, and it looks like an army assaulting, a giant dragon or something.
Yeah.
Whereas the Elder Scrolls Online, that was happening with low-level mobs. I was having to compete for low-level mobs with like 40 or 50 other people, and it was just no fun.
And if this were like a first-time MMO or something, I mean, like back in the day, when WoW hadn't already learned from these errors, when most MMO places hadn't learned from these errors, that would be excusable. There was a time when you had to queue up to, find Mankirk's wife. I mean...
in the Warcraft Mists of Pandaria beta,
Right.
there was a 4-hour queue for one quest that was broken because only one person could do it at a time, and I sat in line in digital form while sitting in my computer chair watching Netflix, pressing the forward button every couple minutes to have my character walk forward 2 steps. I queued, literally, in the British sense, I waited an actual DMV-esque line for 4 hours for this broken quest. And that was fine, because it was a beta, and because they were going to fix that.
Elder Scrolls, and this was in the beta too, but the problem is, they fixed it with this super phasing. Why do you play an MMO, the boy?
To play with other people.
You can't find your people currently in the release version.
Because the phasing is so deep that you're never in the same phase.
And when you realize that, when, you're like, okay, I'm waiting for you at the cliff, we gotta do this quest. Oh, I'm at the cliff, I don't see you. I'm down here, I'm slash waving. Oh, I'm in a different phase. Okay, well, let me teleport to your phase. It doesn't teleport you to their phase directly where they are. It teleports you to their phase at a waystone. So then you have to haul your happy ass back to the cliff. And, it's tedious. This super server, when I first heard about it, was kind of like, this could be really cool or it could be really stupid. And unfortunately, it's gone the way of really stupid. So you're either stuck dealing with a bunch of people who are acting like ingrates and ruining your fun,
or you're in this weird, desolate wasteland, empty MMO-scape where there aren't any other people.
There are people, but they're all strangers. And, I mean, I hear the crafting system is great. I hear the crafting system is what I've wanted in an Elder Scrolls crafting system since...
Elder Scrolls?
Since Morrowind.
Yeah. The crafting system in Skyrim leaves a little to be desired. It's real easy to cheese. It's real easy to break your character
Except for when it isn't. Because you know what? I've made myself a set of full steel armor. I've made myself steel weapons. And now I have to smith myself 100 steel swords until I'm good enough to make Dwarven. I like a crafting system like that, but at the same time, it seems a bit tedious? Unnecessarily so?
If you play it without doing the 100 steel swords and you actually just make crafting pieces when you get back into town for the purposes of improving and reselling, it takes a long time to get, but you can just make iron daggers. You can just make 1,000,000 iron daggers. I think someone did the math on exactly how many iron daggers you have to make to get to 100 blacksmithing.
Well, and I mean, I like to make the items I have until I run out of resources. Like if I'm in Dwarven, I'll keep making Dwarven until I level up to Orcish, I believe is next. But actually, I think that's the other way around. I think it's Orcish and then Dwarven. But
no, it's Dwarven and Orcish. I looked it up last night.
No, okay. Well, you get Orcish weapon drops
unless I'm dumb.
Sooner, and I think that's weird. But regardless, I wouldn't mind if it was like a time release kind of thing. Like, once you get to a certain threshold, you start getting loot drops for Orcish and Dwarven or whatever. Once you get to that level threshold, or a little bit before it, since you're the one smithing it, that's when you should be able to take the perk. Not when you get to a certain level of smithing. Like, maybe you also have to be a certain degree of smithing to do it, but on a smaller scale. Because it's ridiculous that you're level, you could be level 50, but because your smithing isn't quite high enough yet, you can't use different materials. Make your armor shittier to start out with, and then have it get better as it goes on. Or your weapons or whatever. But anyway. That's a minor complaint. Elder Scrolls Online. The other problem I have with it is, the combat's not fun.
It's much like what they did to the graphics, what they did to the how they had to dumb them down. It made it flat and uninteresting. What they had to do to the combat to make it MMO compatible was make it flat and uninteresting.
Which is a shame because their skill trees and the actual abilities are really cool. But everything you do around those abilities is really boring. Like, I use WildStar as a comparison here because it's so fresh and it's so much fun. I rolled my character in the beta. I rolled a Chua Spellslinger. And I had an amazing time just moving around and shooting stuff. Basic combat. I got like 3 abilities. And it's a blast. But I rolled my character in Elder Scrolls and it's like, this sword isn't even fun to swing.
It's just It's a sad parody of a Batman 60s series punch sound effect. It's just peh. It's not. There's no. When you swing a sword in Skyrim, there's a very visceral feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like, yeah, I'm fucking up this dummy or whatever it is you're
right.
Hitting. When you swing a sword in the Elder Scrolls Online, it's very bland. It's milquetoast. It doesn't give that same sort of feedback.
And that's so important. If you can't get around that, when Star Wars, The Old Republic came out, my initial criticism is this is just WoW with lightsabers and a better storyline.
But then you realized, hey, this is WoW with lightsabers and a better storyline.
And I didn't really get that until The Elder Scrolls Online because I didn't want Knights of the Old Republic MMO. I wanted either a good MMO or Knights of the Old Republic 3. And if they released it on consoles as Knights of the Old Republic 3, I'd still fucking play it. But Elder Scrolls, in comparison to even Star Wars, that I gave that criticism to, it's too much of one and not enough of the other, and depending on what camp you're living in, depends on whether that's too much MMO and not enough Skyrim, or too much Skyrim and not enough MMO. I think they tried to please all of the people all of the time and made a big steaming pile of shit that looks really pretty.
Which is super unfortunate, but hopefully that means the Elder Scrolls 6 will be out a little sooner.
Yeah, we've got whisperings of Fallout 4 on the horizon. Oh, yeah, with the Skyrim engine, man, I can't fucking wait.
Oh, that's gonna be great.
So it's probably not gonna be but a couple years before the next Elder Scroll game comes out. We're looking at, I think, Dominion. That's my bet. We're gonna go to,
the Somerset Isles to take down the Aldmeri Dominion.
I think that's what we're gonna do.
But my bet, and this is not a bet based on any facts or any storyline, this is my bet based on what I would love to see. I really want Elsewhere or Black Marsh. I don't care which one, Elsewhere or Black Marsh. Elsewhere or Black Marsh. I want to see one of those two places. Preferably Black Marsh, because Black Marsh sounds wacky.
I'd like to see Elsewhere first, because I think it's more established. I think they need some time to establish Black Marsh. I think by this point, we know enough about Khajiit society that we can do that. Whereas in Black Marsh, with Argonians, I mean, even since Oblivion, they worship the Hist now. It's like a god to them. But there's not a Hist tree anymore. What? Things are way different. There's no longer shadow scales.
So, yeah, I mean, maybe go to Elsewhere, use that to set up more information about the Argonian society now, and then go to Black Marsh.
I would love to see them eventually do all of them, and I'd like to see at least one of the beast races sooner than later. But I think for story reasons, we're probably going to have Dominion next. It just makes sense. They set up this huge enemy in the Thalmor. Yeah, in Skyrim.
As the Thalmor, as, the Aldmeri Dominion as a whole, is this evil taken away God's corporation sort of government.
I mean, even if you sign with the Empire, in the
they don't like them.
Yeah, they're like, oh, those guys are assholes, and we don't like them, but
they did beat the shit out of us.
We're keeping the peace, and we're not all speaking Elvish right now, so be happy. They set them up as this huge monstrosity, this huge Nazi empire, and you bump into them twice?
Yeah, you knock over one of their drinks and
you inconvenience them
mildly.
That Dragonborn's a bit of a bother. Should we do anything about it? No. Right then.
So, yeah, you're right. I'm really hoping. And this is a pie-in-the-sky dream, but I think anyone who plays Elder Scrolls games can agree that the ultimate dream is to get to a level of gaming where it's possible to just have the Elder Scrolls Tamriel.
Which is, Elder Scrolls Online offers that.
But not really.
No, and not fast enough. Man, I got off the boat from the opening segment, and I was like, I'm going to go to Khajiit Town. I rolled a Khajiit, and I was like, we're going to go there. It's going to be fun. And I'm like, where the hell am I, and where is Khajiit Town? This is dumb. And no one could tell me, and I couldn't figure out the map, so I said, fuck it, and uninstalled the game. It's gone.
Well, looks like we're about at time, so...
Yes, I do want to thank each and every one of you, listener, for tuning in today. We might start doing this twice a week.
Yeah.
It's been a concept I've been tossing around in my head a little while. We'll see where we're at in the middle of the week. See if maybe we can bring you a Thursday show.
That'd be super great. Until we decide on that, or at the very least until next week, if we keep it to one a week, don't forget, everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it, let's get hardcore! Blood, pain, we're all insane. Suffer head trauma, destroy our